I asked Reb Shalom Mordechai, whenever I hear him speak, or when he spoke to me, he never says I was in prison. Even in a private telephone conversation, he says, when I was in a place called prison. So I'm wondering, maybe he can explain why in all the speeches he refuses to say that he was in prison.
What this means is that even though when a person finds himself in a place called prison, his body is in the place called prison, but that's not where his neshama is. Now, so it depends what you decide to be the main part of you. What are you? Who are you? Are you your guf, or are you neshama? That's the part. So I'll describe you a few stories that are parshat unbelievable, where this is what we learn, and it works out exactly how we learn it to be. When a person focuses his enjoyments and his pleasures and who he is, he defines himself by his guf, how good he looks, how much money he has, what he buys, what he has. So that's all external. And when that is in a place, when his guf is back in prison, not only is his body in prison, but also his neshama is in prison, then he'll say he is in prison. when a yid decides, when he decides that the main part of him is his neshama, so then he's not in prison. He happens to be in a place called prison. It's an external situation where he finds himself and more. When he frees his neshama, he actually frees also his guf. There was just start off with a story about a ghost. I was walking by with I was obviously the Amkin cities. I walked by. There's a line of new customers that came that day to the place called prison, and they lined up to find out which room they were checking into, something like that. They would get the room before. I mean, they were lining up to an office to find out things they had to find out whether that day or the next day. And one guy made a remark to me about my tzitzis. I don't know. I remember. So naturally, I turned around to find out if it's a friend or a foe. Right? What did he really mean? And the one who said it realized that I may have been offended. So he says, "I know what that is," and he says, "I know it's tzitzis." Now this guy did not look like he did at all. He didn't look like he at all. And he went by the name Ghost. Maybe a lot of people have that name of the Ghost. Why? Because he came from a different state, and there he went to Torah school. He got some Jewish education, and somewhere in his years of youth, he winds up being part of a gang, I think a Mexican gang, and then he becomes a leader of the gang, and then he gets involved with some really violent stuff, and he winds himself up in prison with like a 12, I remember clearly about a 12-year sentence. Rubashkin needed 27 years, it's more dangerous. This guy got 12, Shane. So he was in the high security. His situation with violence, I guess, was serious enough that it had him in a high security. The facility I was in was a medium security facility, and he was in high security. And the last 9 months of his bid, as they call it over there, he was lowered to lower security. That's why he wound up over there. Obviously, he wound up over there to meet me. And I should meet him. And knowing that he's a Yid, I started the relationship with him to learn with him and do mitzvahs with him. I tried as much as I could to put on tefillin with him. And sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he was too busy. I don't know. He didn't. Whatever. I tried to do it. Upon him, the way it worked was I always had to find him and to remind him to put on tefillin. And then if it worked, he would come down. He was on the higher floor. He came down and he put on tefillin. We had a chance to speak about his Yiddishkeit. And so, so anyways, without getting in any other stories, he was still in his ways of being violent. And one day he saw me something he shouldn't have had. Al Capone, one day I'm sitting there in the cell. He walks in and he looked like he saw a ghost. And this ghost saw like he saw a ghost. He looked very agitated. He was very visibly upset about something. So I asked him, he tells me, "Rabbi, I need to put on tefillin." He comes to me. So I really didn't, I jumped up. I said, "Sure," I put on my tefillin. Then as I couldn't hold back, and I asked him, "So why today you coming to me?" He looked so nervous. He looked like out of character. And he says to me, he's very nervous. He's very nervous. He can't sleep at night. He sleeps very little. What's the problem? He says he's going home in a few weeks, a short while later. I said, wow, if I was going home a few weeks, I'd make a party. No, he's very nervous. I heard this before. A lot of prisoners, upon it gets closer to the release date, they start getting very, very nervous. And they don't know how they're going to be able to go back into society and how they're going to deal with it. In prison, they figured out exactly how to live already. And so he was nervous. So he felt something was totally not himself, he decided that the way he's going to calm himself down was how? Doing a mitzvah. And this is mamish, a perfect example of a yid, neshama. Why would he think that if he's nervous, he has to do a mitzvah? They have a staff, I think, of 5 psychiatrists that are busy giving out therapy and medicine for people to calm themselves down. What do they call tranquilizers? Whatever. They're busy. They have a big staff, maybe as big as a staff to have there for physical purposes, have for mental purposes. So this guy's been there for a long time. If he had a mental situation before he started putting on film, would he have known to ask to put on film? So obviously, something about doing the mitzvahs over the last few months with him touched him in a way that he felt a certain calmness, that he realized that he now can satisfy his yearning for something, or assure himself that Hashem is with him by doing a mitzvah. And this is exactly shows that I was on stage by Fabringen, and the Rebbe was explaining how does a child know that he has to eat. He was talking to a group of college students that didn't know the importance of doing a mitzvah. So he said that if you do a mitzvah for the neshama, it's like you're eating for the body. So a person doesn't have to wait till he goes to school at 18, 19 years old to find out how food sustains his body. If he waits that 18, 19 years, he won't make it, right? So he eats, and then later, if he wants to find out how it works, he finds out. The same thing for a mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, it sustains your neshama. It connects your neshama with the Eibishter. And that connection is the lifeblood for his neshama. And if he doesn't have that connection, the neshama is going to be hungry. And if you're hungry, the neshama will be craving for something. And if you're born into a Jewish family that does Torah mitzvahs, you'll know why he's craving. If you're not born into a Jewish family, he won't know what that craving is, and that's why many Yidden are always on the extreme side of things. That something within them is pulling them. They don't know how to translate that pull, and they, instead of doing Torah mitzvahs, They feel they have to jump out of planes and jump off cliffs and do high speed things. There was a guy in prison, a guy from Russia. He told me he had a friend. He did every high speed mishugas he can think of, out of planes, off cliffs, up and down. But he never calmed down until he started putting on film. He started putting on film, he calmed down. The marshal for this is very simple. When a baby is born, how does he know to eat? A baby has to eat. How does he know to eat? The mother knows that the baby is hungry, so she feeds the baby, right? When the baby cries, baby cries. Why? Because the baby cries because it feels discomfort. The mother can translate the discomfort that it means food. The baby doesn't know, so it feeds it. Then the baby feels that if it eats, that discomfort goes away. Over a few months, it figures out that this discomfort can be satisfied through food. So the same thing absolutely works. The same thing with Torah mitzvahs. When a yid feels discomfort, he feels empty, or he feels that he needs something, then he will take a do Torah mitzvahs, and that will pick him up. That's the neshama part. So when a person actually focuses on the neshama, not only is he feeding his guf, he's actually in the neshama, he's actually also feeding his guf. It's amazing.